The text came at 2:47 p.m. on a Friday, while I was reviewing the seating chart for the Children's Hospital Gala. 700 guests. 40 corporate sponsors. 2 governors, 3 senators and the lieutenant governor. All confirmed. My phone buzzed. Don't come to the family reunion tomorrow. Maria's boyfriend is State Senator Richard Brennan. We need to impress him. Your nonprofit work would just complicate things. Hope you understand. Dad. I stared at the message for a long moment. 12 years of building one of the most successful children's advocacy organizations in the state, and my father still thought I worked at a little charity. I wasn't angry. I was done. I typed back, okay. What my family didn't know, what they'd never bothered to ask, was that Senator Richard Brennan was the keynote speaker at my gala. That same night. At the same country club where they were holding their reunion. And he'd be sitting at my table. Growing up as the middle child in the Torres family meant being invisible. My older sister Maria was the beauty homecoming queen, sorority president, married to wealth at 23, divorced at 25, now dating a state senator at 28. My younger brother Carlos was the athlete, full ride to USC minor league baseball sports commentator for the local news. I was neither beautiful enough nor athletic enough to warrant attention. Sophia's more of a thinker. Mom would say at family gatherings the way someone might describe a boring but dependable appliance. When I told them at 16 that I wanted to work in nonprofit advocacy, Dad actually laughed. Honey, those jobs don't pay anything. You need to be practical. Maybe teaching? Good benefits, summers off. Or marry well, Maria added, examining her nails. That's always an option. I stopped sharing my dreams after that. At 18, I started volunteering at a children's hospital. Just a few hours a week between classes at community college. I'd read to kids in the oncology ward, play games with them, help families navigate the impossible maze of medical bureaucracy. One day, a mother grabbed my hand in the hallway. You saved us, she said, tears streaming. We were about to lose our house paying for treatment. You found us that fund. You didn't give up. That's when I knew. I transferred to State University. Double major. Public policy and social work. Worked 3 jobs to pay for it because Dad said, we already helped Maria with college. Carlos gets the athletic scholarship. You'll figure it out. I figured it out. Graduated with honors at 22. Got hired at a small children's advocacy nonprofit making $31,000 a year. My family congratulated me the way you might congratulate someone on a participation trophy. That's nice, Mija, Mom said at Sunday dinner. But when are you going to get a real career? Maria, who was planning her second wedding at the time, patted my hand. It's sweet that you want to help people. But you also need to think about your future. I just smiled. I am. What they didn't see was the strategic plan I'd been developing. The gaps in children's healthcare advocacy in our state. The funding opportunities nobody was pursuing. The policy changes that could save thousands of families from bankruptcy while their kids fought for their lives. At 23, I founded my own organization, Children's Healthcare Advocacy Network, CHAN. Started with a $50,000 grant I'd written myself, working midnight to 4 a.m. for 6 weeks straight while maintaining my day job. I lived in a studio apartment, drove a 12-year-old Honda, ate ramen 4 nights a week, reinvested everything. My family never asked about it. At Sunday dinners, they'd talk about Maria's new boyfriend, a lawyer who drove a Porsche. They'd discuss Carlos's rising profile as a sports commentator. When conversation turned to me, it was always the same. Still at that children's charity? That's nice. Very nice. By 25, CHAN had 15 employees and a $2.3 million operating budget. We'd helped 847 families navigate medical debt. We'd changed 3 state policies around pediatric care coverage. We'd built partnerships with every major hospital in the state. I moved to a better apartment but kept it modest. Still drove the Honda. The only luxury was my wardrobe. I'd learned that looking successful helped secure donors. High-quality suits, professional styling, the appearance of someone who ran a serious operation. Because I did. At Sunday dinner, Maria noticed my new suit. Finally shopping somewhere nice. Did you get a raise at the charity? Something like that, I said. Good for you, Dad added, barely looking up from his phone. Maybe you can finally afford to buy a house. What he didn't know I just purchased a modest townhouse. Fish. No mortgage. But I didn't mention it. What was the point? By 27, Chan's budget was $8.7 million. We had 43 employees across 5 regional offices. We'd helped over 3,200 families. Our policy advocacy had resulted in $43 million in additional state funding for children's healthcare programs. I was invited to speak at national conferences, testified before state legislature committees, built relationships with every major political figure in the state who cared about children's issues, including State Senator Richard Brennan. Senator Brennan and I had worked together on 3 major pieces of legislation. He'd been instrumental in passing the Children's Medical Debt Relief Act, a bill I'd written that helped families discharge medical debt through a state hardship fund. We'd had coffee probably 15 times, strategy sessions, fundraiser planning meetings. He knew me as Sofia Torres, executive director of CHAN. I knew him as a genuinely decent politician who actually cared about policy over politics. When his office called 6 months ago about keynoting our annual gala, I'd been thrilled. The Children's Hospital Gala was our biggest fundraiser. Last year we'd raised $4.2 million in one night. This year we were aiming for $6 million. The guest list included the Lieutenant Governor, 2 other state senators, dozens of corporate executives, philanthropists, and community leaders. The seating chart alone had taken 3 weeks to finalize. Senator Brennan was at the head table. With me, the Lieutenant Governor, our board chair, and 2 major donors. What I didn't know until yesterday was that Senator Brennan was also dating my sister Maria. The text from Dad came while I was doing final gala preparations. Don't come to the family reunion tomorrow. Maria's boyfriend is State Senator Richard Brennan. We need to impress him. Your nonprofit work would just complicate things. I read it 3 times. Complicate things. I called my assistant director, James. What time is Senator Brennan arriving tonight? 6:30. He wanted to arrive early to review his speech with you. Perfect. I paused. James, hypothetically, if you found out your family was having a reunion at the same venue as our gala, what would you do? Depends. Are they terrible people or just oblivious? Oblivious. Mostly. Then I'd let the universe handle it. He paused. Wait, Sylvia, your family reunion is here? Tonight. Apparently. In the small ballroom. And Senator Brennan is... He started laughing. Oh no. Well, this is beautiful. Your sister is dating our keynote speaker. Seems that way. Are you going to tell them? I thought about 12 years of dismissal. 12 years of, that's nice, Mija. 12 years of being the forgettable middle child with the little charity job. No, I said. I don't think I will. I arrived at the country club at 5 p.m. The grand ballroom looked perfect. Round tables with floor-length linens, centerpieces of white roses and blue hydrangeas, soft lighting that made everything glow. The stage was set with our CHAN logo projected behind the podium. The small ballroom next door, where my family's reunion was happening, was decorated with colorful balloons and a banner reading, Torres Family Reunion 2024. I checked in with our event coordinator, confirmed the photographers' positions, reviewed the program one last time. At 5:45 I changed into my gown, a midnight blue floor-length dress that had cost more than my first car. It was worth it. Tonight mattered. At 6:15 I was greeting early arrivals in the lobby when I heard familiar voices. This place is gorgeous, my mother's voice carried. I can't believe Maria's boyfriend is a state senator. A state senator. Just be cool, Mom, Maria's voice tight with nerves. Act natural. Don't embarrass me. When do we embarrass you? Dad asked, sounding hurt. I stepped back into the grand ballroom before they could see me. At 6:30 Senator Brennan arrived. Sophia. He greeted me with a warm handshake. The place looks incredible. You've really outdone yourself. Thank you, Senator. We're projecting $6.2 million tonight. That's remarkable. He loosened his tie slightly. I have to tell you, I'm a bit nervous. This is a bigger crowd than most of my campaign events. You'll be wonderful. You always are. I gestured to the head table. You're at table 1 with me, Lieutenant Governor Chin, our board chair Patricia Morrison, and donors Michael and Susan Chin. All good people, very supportive of children's health care. Perfect. Though I should mention, I'm bringing a guest. My girlfriend. I hope that's okay? I cleared it with your office last week. Of course. We have her seated next to you. Great. She's actually around here somewhere with her family. They're having some kind of reunion in the other ballroom. He checked his watch. I should go find her, bring her in for introductions before things start. Take your time, I said smoothly. We don't start seating until 7. He headed toward the lobby. I took a deep breath and went to check on the kitchen. At 6:45, guests were arriving in earnest. The lieutenant governor, corporate executives, philanthropists I'd been courting for months. Everyone dressed to impress, ready for an evening of making a difference. At 6:55, the event coordinator gave me the 5-minute warning. At 6:57, I took my place at the head table. At 6:59, the doors opened for final seating. Senator Brennan entered the grand ballroom with Maria on his arm. She looked beautiful, of course she did. Red dress, perfect hair, diamonds at her throat that had probably cost more than my monthly salary back when I was starting Chan. They approached the head table. The coordinator checked their names, confirmed their seats. Senator Brennan pulled out Maria's chair, started to sit down himself. Then he saw the place card to his left. Sofia Torres, Executive Director, Chan. He looked up, saw me sitting there, composed and professional. His face went absolutely white. Sofia. His voice came out strangled. You're Sofia Torres? Maria's head whipped around. She saw me. Her mouth fell open. Hello, Senator Brennan, I said calmly. Maria. So glad you could join us tonight. You. Maria's voice was barely a whisper. You run this. I founded it, actually. 12 years ago. I gestured to the ballroom. Welcome to the Children's Healthcare Advocacy Network annual gala. We're hoping to raise over $6 million tonight to support families whose children are fighting life-threatening illnesses. Senator Brennan sank into his chair, still staring. Maria, your sister is Sofia Torres? The Sofia Torres? The one who wrote the Medical Debt Relief Act. I didn't. Maria looked around wildly as if searching for an exit. The lieutenant governor leaned over. Sofia, is everything all right? Perfectly fine, Lieutenant Governor Chin. Just some family catching up. I smiled at Maria. Maria, you're looking well. How have you been? She couldn't form words. Senator Brennan's expression was shifting from shock to something like horror. Maria, you told me your sister worked at a small nonprofit. You said she had a nice little charity job that she was very passionate about. She does. Maria gestured helplessly at the ballroom full of powerful people, the stage, the projected donations already climbing on the screens. I didn't know it was this. This is the most influential children's advocacy organization in the state, the senator said, his voice getting louder. Sofia has testified before Congress. She's been featured in the New York Times, the Washington Post, Forbes 30 Under 30 social entrepreneurs. He turned to me. Your family doesn't know? They never asked, I said simply. We. Maria's face was red now. Sofia works at a charity. He always has. We thought. You thought it was cute? I suggested gently. Sweet. Nice but not serious. Maria's silence was answer enough. Senator Brennan stood up abruptly. Excuse me. I need a moment. He walked away from the table. Pulled out his phone. I could see him typing furiously. Maria leaned toward me, her voice desperate and low. Sofia, you have to understand. We didn't mean. Maria. I kept my voice gentle but firm. Dad texted me this afternoon. Told me not to come to the family reunion because your boyfriend was a state senator and my nonprofit work would complicate things. Would be embarrassing. Her face went from red to pale. He told you not to come? Because I'd be an embarrassment to you. In front of your impressive boyfriend. The state senator. I paused. The same state senator I've been working with for 3 years. The same senator who's here tonight to speak at my gala. At my invitation. Oh my God. Maria put her head in her hands. Senator Brennan returned to the table. His jaw was set. I just texted your father. Asked him why he didn't mention his daughter Ran Chan. He said, and I quote, Sofia? She works at that children's charity. Nice work but nothing major. The whole head table was silent now, listening. I replied, the senator continued, his voice tight with anger, that I was currently at Chan's annual gala. That his daughter Sophia was sitting next to me. That I was about to give a keynote speech praising her extraordinary leadership. He looked at Maria. He said there must be some mistake. That Sophia couldn't possibly be important enough to host an event like this. Richard, Maria started. Do you know what I told him? The senator wasn't yelling, but his voice carried. I told him I've worked with his daughter on 3 major pieces of legislation. That she's one of the most effective advocates I've ever met. That Chan has a $9.4 million operating budget and helps thousands of families every year. That his daughter has done more to improve children's lives in this state than most elected officials manage in an entire career. Maria was crying now. Silent tears running down her carefully made-up face. I told him, Senator Brennan continued, that I was honored to be at her event. And that I was reconsidering my relationship with any family that could be so blind to one of their own. Senator, I said quietly, the program starts in 3 minutes. He took a breath. Sat down. You're right. I apologize. This is your night. I shouldn't have. No apology necessary. I touched his arm briefly. But perhaps we should focus on the children we're here to help? He nodded. Reached for his water glass with a shaking hand. Maria whispered, Sophia, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. We didn't know. I know you didn't. That's the problem. The lights dimmed. Our board chair approached the microphone to begin the program. I gave the opening remarks. Talked about the 4,847 families Chan had served this year. The policy victories. The lives changed. Introduced our first video. A mother talking about how Chan had saved her family from bankruptcy while her son fought leukemia. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Throughout the program, I could see Maria at the head table, her mascara running, trying to hold herself together. Senator Brennan was polite but distant with her, all his warmth reserved for his interactions with me and the other guests. When it was time for his keynote, the senator walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone, looked out at the 700 guests. Good evening. I'm State Senator Richard Brennan, and I'm honored to be here tonight to support the Children's Healthcare Advocacy Network. He paused. But I have to tell you, I almost didn't understand the significance of this moment. He gestured to me at the head table. Sophia Torres founded Chan 12 years ago with a $50,000 grant and a vision. A vision that every child deserves access to quality health care, regardless of their family's financial situation. A vision that medical debt shouldn't destroy families already facing the unthinkable. The audience applauded. In the past 12 years, Sophia has built an organization that has helped nearly 5,000 families. She's changed state policy. She's testified before legislative committees, including mine, with such clarity and passion that even the most cynical politicians couldn't help but be moved. He looked directly at me. Sophia Torres is the reason we passed the Children's Medical Debt Relief Act. Her research, her advocacy, her refusal to give up when everyone said it was impossible. Because of her work, 3,200 families this year alone were able to discharge medical debt and start rebuilding their lives. More applause. I kept my expression neutral, professional. But here's what struck me tonight, the senator continued. I was talking with someone earlier who didn't know what Sophia had built. Someone who thought she worked at a nice little charity. Someone who had no idea that the woman they dismissed as doing sweet but not serious work had actually created one of the most impactful organizations in our state. Maria sank lower in her chair. It made me think about how often we make assumptions. How often we decide someone isn't important based on our own limited understanding. How often we dismiss people who are quietly changing the world because they don't fit our definition of success. He paused, letting it sink in. Sophia Torres doesn't seek headlines. She seeks results. She doesn't build a personal brand. She builds systems that save lives. She doesn't need anyone to recognize her accomplishments, but we should. Because the quiet heroes, the ones doing the work without demanding applause, those are the people who actually change the world. The applause was thunderous now. So tonight, as we raise money for Chan's extraordinary work, I want to challenge everyone in this room. Who are you dismissing? Who have you decided isn't worth your attention? Who have you labeled as nice but not serious? Because I promise you, some of those people are doing the most important work you'll never notice. He looked at Maria again. Then back to the audience. Don't make the mistake I almost made. Don't let brilliant people labor in obscurity because you were too proud to ask them about their work. Don't assume that quiet means inconsequential. He raised his glass. To Sofia Torres and to everyone doing vital work without asking for recognition. May we have the wisdom to see you, the grace to celebrate you, and the humility to learn from you. The entire ballroom stood. 700 people giving a standing ovation. I stood too, nodding my thanks, maintaining my composure even as my heart raced. The senator returned to the table. Sat down next to Maria, who was openly sobbing now. I'm sorry, he said quietly to her. But I can't be with someone who treats family that way. Who dismisses her own sister's accomplishments because they don't look like success in a form she recognizes. Richard, please. I'll have my assistant send your things to your apartment. He stood. Enjoy the rest of the evening. He moved to the empty seat on my other side. Maria fled the ballroom. During the silent auction portion of the evening, my phone exploded with messages. Dad, Sofia, we need to talk. Now. Mom, how could you not tell us? Carlos, sis, what the hell? You run that organization? Aunt Teresa, your father just told me. I'm so proud of you. Why didn't you say anything? Cousin Miguel, you're Sofia Torres? The Sofia Torres? I literally cited your work in my master's thesis. I turned my phone face down and focused on my guests. The lieutenant governor approached during cocktail hour. Sofia, that was quite a moment with Senator Brennan. Is everything all right? Family dynamics, Lieutenant Governor. Nothing that should concern you. She smiled knowingly. I understand family dynamics. Mine thought I was playing politics for 15 years. Then I got elected to statewide office and suddenly they all had opinions about my policy positions. She sipped her wine. The people who don't ask don't deserve to know. You don't owe them your story just because you share DNA. Thank you for that. Besides, she continued, your work speaks for itself. I've been reviewing the budget proposal Chan submitted for next year's state funding. Brilliant work. Let's schedule a meeting next week to discuss it. I'd be honored, Lieutenant Governor. By the end of the evening, we'd raised $6.8 million. 700,000 more than our goal. Senator Brennan found me as guests were leaving. Sofia, I apologize for the scene. That wasn't professional. Senator, you spoke from the heart about something you believe in. That's exactly what we needed tonight. Your sister and I are done. I can't. He shook his head. I can't be with someone who's that blind to what matters. Who judges people by such superficial measures. I appreciate that, but you don't need to explain your personal decisions to me. I want you to know your work matters. You matter. And I'm sorry your family couldn't see that. They're starting to, I said quietly. I left the country club at 11 p.m. Exhausted but exhilarated. We'd done it. Another successful gala, more families we could help, more lives we could change. My phone had 63 missed calls and 127 text messages. I ignored all of them except one from James, my assistant director. Boss, you're trending on Twitter. Hashtag Sofia Torres and hashtag Quiet Heroes. The senator's speech went viral. 4.2 million views. I pulled up Twitter. The clip was everywhere. Comments flooded in. Don't let brilliant people labor in obscurity. This speech is everything. Imagine telling your daughter not to come to a family event because your other daughter's boyfriend would be there. And he turns out to be speaking at her gala. Karma. Sofia Torres built a $9.4 million organization while her family thought she had a nice little charity job. This is why you should ask people about their lives. The audacity of that family. She literally helps thousands of children and they told her to stay home. I pulled into my driveway. Sat in the car for a moment. My phone rang. Dad. I answered. Hello. Sofia. His voice was tight. We need to talk about why you didn't tell us. No, Dad. You need to talk about why you never asked. That's not fair. Isn't it? In 12 years, how many times did you ask about my work? How many times did you ask what Chan actually does? How many times did you ask about my budget, my staff, my policy work, my advocacy? Silence. I have 43 employees, Dad. We operate in 5 regional offices across the state. We've changed 6 major state policies. We've helped 4,847 families in the last year alone. We have partnerships with every major hospital system in the state. I've testified before Congress twice. You testified before Congress? 3 years ago and again last year. It was in the Washington Post. The New York Times did a profile on me for their People Who Matter series. Forbes named me to their 30 Under 30 list when I was 26. We didn't see. You didn't look. There's a difference. I let out a breath. You texted me this afternoon and told me not to come to the family reunion because my work would embarrass you in front of Maria's boyfriend. Do you understand how that felt? We didn't mean. You meant exactly what you said. You were embarrassed by me. By my little charity job. By the daughter who wasn't glamorous like Maria or successful like Carlos. The daughter who was just there. Sophia, that's not true. Then tell me 3 things about my life that you learned by asking, not by accident. 3 things you know because you cared enough to ask. The silence stretched for 30 seconds. 45. A minute. That's what I thought, I said gently. Dad, I don't need you to suddenly be proud of me because a senator gave a speech and Twitter is paying attention. I needed you to be interested in me when it was just me doing work I believed in, building something that mattered. I'm sorry. His voice cracked. Mihija, I'm so sorry. We failed you. Yes, you did. But Dad, I succeeded anyway. I built something beautiful. I changed lives. I did it without your support, without your interest, without your belief. And I'm proud of that. Can we fix this? I don't know yet. Maybe. But not tonight. Not because you're embarrassed that you didn't know. Not because it's awkward that Senator Brennan dumped Maria over this. When you're ready to know me, Sophia, the person, not the unexpectedly successful daughter, then we can talk. How will I know when I'm ready? You won't. I will. I paused. But here's a start. Read Chan's annual report. It's on our website. Read about what we actually do. Then if you're genuinely interested, we can have coffee and talk about it. Not to apologize. Not to make yourself feel better. Just to learn about something I've spent 12 years building. I'll read it tonight. We'll see. I hung up. The next morning Maria called. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello. Sophia. He was crying. Richard broke up with me. He said he can't be with someone who treats her family the way I treated you. I'm sorry you're hurting. Are you? Because it feels like you orchestrated this whole thing to humiliate me. I laughed. No humor in it. Maria, I didn't orchestrate anything. I ran my annual gala, which I've been planning for 11 months. Senator Brennan was our keynote speaker, which his office confirmed 6 months ago. You dating him was pure coincidence. You being at my event was pure coincidence. But you knew he'd be there. Of course I knew. It's my event. What I didn't know was that he was your boyfriend until Dad texted me yesterday telling me to stay away so I wouldn't embarrass you. She was quiet for a moment. I didn't know you'd built something this big. You never asked. In 12 years, Maria, you never once asked what Chan was. What we do. How we're funded. How many people we employ. You just assumed it was a cute little charity where I answered phones and felt good about myself. I didn't think. That's the problem. You didn't think. You made assumptions and never questioned them. And when those assumptions were challenged in the most public way possible, you blamed me for not correcting you earlier. That's not fair. Maria, you told Dad to uninvite me to the family reunion because my job would embarrass you. You told Richard the first worked at a nice little charity. You've spent 12 years treating me like the disappointing sister who never amounted to anything. Don't ask me to feel guilty because your assumptions were wrong. She sobbed. I lost him because of this. No, you lost him because of who you are. Because when confronted with your sister's actual accomplishments, you didn't feel pride or joy. You felt embarrassed that you'd gotten it wrong. Richard saw that. And he made his choice. So you're just going to let my relationship die? Maria, it's not my job to save your relationships. It's not my job to make you look good. It's not my job to hide my accomplishments so you feel better about dismissing them. I softened slightly. But it is my job to tell you the truth. You have a choice. You can be angry at me for succeeding quietly. Or you can examine why you needed to diminish me to feel secure in your own success. I never. You did. Every time you called it my little charity. Every time you changed the subject when I tried to share my work. Every time you introduced me as my sister who works at a nonprofit, with that particular tone that said, "Isn't that sweet but pointless?" Silence. "I'm going into therapy," she finally said. Richard's breakup made me realize, I don't like who I've become. That's good, Maria. Really? Can we have coffee? After I've done some work on myself? I thought about it. In a few months, maybe. When you're doing therapy for yourself, not to fix things with me or win Richard back. When you're ready to meet me as an equal, not as the sister you need to feel superior to. Okay, she whispered. Okay. 3 weeks later, Dad called. Sophia, I read the annual report. All of it. Then I read the articles about you. The Forbes profile. The Washington Post piece. The congressional testimony transcripts. And I understand now why you're angry. Why you've kept your distance. He paused. I also understand that I don't know you at all. The woman in those articles, the Sophia who talks about policy and advocacy and systematic change, I don't know her. No, you don't. I'd like to. If you'd let me. What changed, Dad? Because 3 weeks ago you told me to stay home so I wouldn't embarrass the family. I watched Senator Brennan's speech. The full version, not just the clip. And when he talked about dismissing people who are quietly changing the world. His voice caught. I saw myself. I saw what I'd done to you. What we'd all done. That's a start. Can we meet? Just you and me. No agenda. No apologies. Just coffee and conversation. I thought about Margaret's foundation. About the young entrepreneurs I funded who'd been dismissed by their families. About the letter I sent each one. Build something that matters. Make them look. They'd all looked now. 1 hour, I said. Next Sunday. The coffee shop on 5th Street. Thank you, Mija. Don't thank me yet, Dad. This is going to be uncomfortable for both of us. I know. But you're worth being uncomfortable for. Sunday morning I arrived early. Ordered my usual oat milk latte. Sat by the window. Dad arrived exactly on time. Looked older somehow. More uncertain. We sat down. Thank you for meeting me, he said. Tell me something, I replied. And be honest. When did you realize you didn't know me? He was quiet for a long moment. When I called Chan's office to verify the annual report was real. Your receptionist answered. Children's Healthcare Advocacy Network, how may I help you? I asked to speak to Sophia Torres. She said, may I ask what this is regarding? I said, I'm her father. There was this pause. Then she said very carefully, Torres speaks very highly of her work with families. I'm sure she'd be happy to discuss Chan's mission with you. Sandra is very professional. She didn't know who I was, Sophia. Your own receptionist didn't know you had a father. Because you'd never mention me. Never brought us to your office, never talked about us at work. Never included us in your life in any way. You never asked to be included. I know. He looked down at his coffee. But it still hurt. Realizing my daughter had built this entire life, this entire world-changing organization, and I wasn't part of it. Wasn't even a footnote. How do you think I felt at every family dinner where you celebrated Maria's promotions and Carlos's TV appearances and asked me if I needed help paying my bills? I thought I was being helpful. Supportive. You were being dismissive. There's a difference. I leaned back. Dad, I bought my townhouse with cash 4 years ago. I make $185,000 a year, which I know because it's public record for nonprofit executives. I have a retirement account worth $420,000. I've been financially stable for 7 years. And you were still asking if I needed money for rent. His face crumpled. Because I never asked what you actually made. What your life actually looked like. I just assumed. You assumed I was failing because my success didn't look like Maria's designer clothes and Carlos's public profile. You assumed quiet meant unsuccessful. Senator Brennan called that out in his speech. About quiet heroes. He did. He also called me. Dad met my eyes. Last week. Told me that if I didn't fix my relationship with you, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. That you were one of the most extraordinary people he'd ever worked with, and I was blind not to see it. He didn't need to do that. Maybe not. But I'm glad he did. Dad reached across the table. Stopped short of touching my hand. Sophia, I don't know how to fix 12 years of not paying attention, of not seeing you, but I want to learn. I want to know the woman who built Chan, who changes policies and saves families and testifies before Congress. That's not all I am, Dad. I know. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know what else you are. What you love, what you read, what you dream about, who your friends are, what makes you laugh. I don't know my own daughter. I took a sip of my coffee. Let the moment breathe. I collect vintage political campaign buttons, I said finally. I have over 300 of them from 1896 to present day. I'm obsessed with The West Wing. I've watched the entire series 11 times. I foster senior dogs because shelters have trouble placing them. I'm teaching myself piano. I'm terrible at it, but I love it anyway. Dad's eyes were wet. I didn't know any of that. Biz, you never asked. But Dad. I met his gaze. I'm telling you now. That's all I can offer. The chance to start knowing me. Not as the daughter who disappointed you, not as the unexpectedly successful surprise, but as me. Sivya. The whole person. I'll take it. Whatever you're willing to give. I'll take it and be grateful. We talked for 2 hours. I told him about my work, yes, but also about the foster dogs, the piano lessons, the campaign button collection. He told me about his own life in ways he never had. His regrets, his fears, his slow realization that he'd valued the wrong things. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. 6 months later, Chan celebrated its 13th anniversary. We just secured a $12 million state contract to expand our services to rural communities. The celebration was at our main office. Staff, board members, volunteers, families we'd helped. And in the corner, looking slightly uncomfortable but genuinely trying, my parents. Dad had read every article I'd sent him, attended 2 of my speaking engagements, volunteered to help with our fundraising database, a job he was surprisingly good at. Mom had started volunteering in our family support program, using her social work degree she'd let lapse 20 years ago. Maria was still in therapy. We'd had coffee twice. Progress was slow, but it was progress. Carlos had written a sports commentary piece about me, the sister I didn't know. What sports can learn from Sofia Torres's quiet leadership. But the most meaningful moment came when a mother approached me during the celebration. Miss Torres, I wanted to thank you. Chan helped us last year when my daughter needed emergency surgery. You personally called me to walk through the hardship fund application. You stayed on the phone for 90 minutes helping me gather documentation. You saved our home. My dad overheard. Watched the mother hug me, tears in her eyes. After she walked away, he said quietly, "You do that often? Personally call families. When I can. It's why I built this. To help people the way I wish someone had helped me understand that my worth wasn't determined by other people's attention. I'm so proud of you, Mija." "Thank you, Dad." I paused. "But I built this for me. For the families. For the kids who deserve healthcare regardless of their parents' bank accounts. Your pride is welcome, but it's not why I do this." He smiled. Sad but genuine. "I know. That's why I'm proud. Because you didn't need my approval to become extraordinary. You just became it anyway." A year after the gala, Senator Brennan and I were having coffee to discuss new legislation. "I saw Maria posted engagement photos," he said carefully. "To that tech entrepreneur. Timothy something. Timothy Chin. He's good for her. Calls her on her nonsense. Makes her laugh. Doesn't care about her Instagram aesthetic. You've met him. 3 times. He's genuine. And he asked me 30 questions about my work before he asked me a single question about Maria. That's how I knew he was different." The senator smiled. "And how are things with your family?" "Better. Slow but better. Dad volunteers at Chan now. Mom runs a support group for parents navigating medical crises. Carlos did a whole segment on invisible success inspired by our story. And Maria? Still in therapy. Still trying. We have lunch monthly. Last time she brought me a vintage McKinley campaign button for my collection. She'd been looking for 3 months. That's growth. It is. I sipped my coffee. But you know what the best part is? I don't need their validation anymore. It's nice when they show interest. But Chan succeeds whether they notice or not. Families get help whether my parents are proud or not. I built something that matters, and that matters more than their belated recognition. "Don't let brilliant people labor in obscurity," he quoted his own speech. I still get emails about that. People sharing their stories of being dismissed, underestimated, told their work didn't matter. Good. They should share those stories. Because somewhere, someone needs to hear that quiet doesn't mean unsuccessful. That doing meaningful work is more important than getting credit for it. He raised his coffee cup. To quiet heroes. I clinked my cup against his. To doing the work that matters whether anyone's watching or not. Because at the end of the day that was the real victory. Not the senator's viral speech. Not my family's belated recognition. Not Maria's boyfriend breaking up with her at my gala. The real victory was the 4,847 families we'd helped last year. The policies we'd changed. The children who got the medical care they needed. The parents who didn't lose their homes to medical debt. I'd built something that mattered while everyone thought I was just working at a nice little charity. And I'd do it all over again.